Ah, the NES, the console of my youth, which unfortunately is not adapted to today's television with its RCA and RF connectors. Of course, there are alternatives like the NES Classic, who holds a couple of games, or the Raytron HD, which also has an HDMI connector. But the main issues with these two is that there's too much input lag. In certain games like Contra or Battletoads, we need immediate input from the game. If we don't, we die. And we're not even gonna talk about Mike Tyson. Even with the tiniest lag, it becomes impossible to beat him. In order to find a solution to this problem, I ordered a kit from GameTech. Because today, we modified this NES to give it HDMI. Here are the parts from the kit that I bought with my own money. This is not an ad. I did add 2 rectangular sockets to replace the ones that came with the kit. I prefer these by far. Let's break the ice with a bit of arts and craft. We'll print out a guide to help us find where to place the HDMI socket in the NES. Let's cut everything properly using our trusty X-Acto knife. And because I find it cute, I'm going to save the sticker that indicates where the AC adapter, channel 3 or channel 4, and the RF adapter go. Once that's done, we can then use our guide to mark where we will place the wonderful hole that will be entertaining us for days to come. Before opening up a console, always make sure that the power supply is empty of electricity. Now that it is done, we can finally open up this puppy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 6. For the 6th one, I have to get a smaller screwdriver because my big one doesn't reach. We can now remove the top and remove the shield. This would be the large metal protector that helps prevent interferences. Here is the position of all the screws. Once that's done, we turn it around because there are more. And finally, when all the screws have been removed, we can remove said shield. Before taking things further, let's see if the unit still works. It does! We can move on. We will now hunt down the 2 screws that hold the RF section, followed by the 6 screws that hold the tray. I want to remind you that the second screws at the bottom of the tray are the longest one. These are the only 2 screws longer than the other ones in the NES. We can now remove the cartridge tray. To then disconnect the controller ports, as well as the console buttons. We can leave the bottom part out of the console for good now. Once the new parts are in, this won't fit anymore anyway. To not damage it, we will remove the cartridge connector for now. We will now remove the CPU and PPU chips. Unfortunately, no, it's not that easy. Desoldering chips is probably the hardest part of that particular mod. There are many ways to do it, but I hardly suggest that you try on a non-functional console first. It's one thing to remove chips to destroy them, but in this case, we need the PPU and CPU to be in perfect condition, because we will use them later. Some people like to use a desoldering wick, but I prefer to go with the pump. I put a bit of solder on a point, and then I suck it up with my pump. Here we go, we can see through the board already. Great, a close-up with my big hands hiding it all. More suction, and here we go, another hole. It is very patient work. We have to remove all 40 solders of both chips. It takes so long, but it's worth it. Once we're able to remove the chip, we are filled with joy. But this one, oops, I might have left a solder undone or something, and upon looking closer, I did in fact break a track. Luckily for me, it's one that led to nothing on the top. Oof. I will now place the rectangular tray, which fit like a dream, because I have successfully removed all soldering with my amazing blue pump. Everything that goes up must come down, and so everything here must be resoldered. Yep, we must resolder all 40 points of both chips in order to achieve maximum happiness. But did we break anything? To find out, we will put back in their places our CPU and PPU, and we'll test out our console to make sure it wasn't killed during the operation. We put back the cartridge pin connector, and we will then test with our TV and the RCA connector. So, NES, tell me, are you still alive? We must of course place back the power button on the motherboard. It's not that simple without the cartridge tray. Let's move it a little. All good! The console is still functional and we can move forward with our project. While we're making an HDMI NES, might as well remove the rigid locking, so we'll desolder point 4 of the lockout chip. I like just cutting underneath, then removing it with my soldering iron. Poof! Easy. Not going to go too deep in the subject, but by removing this, it prevents the problem of the flashing light. This was the console trying to connect to the lockout chip in order to prevent you from playing illegal games, like Trolls on Treasure Island, or the very pertinent Bible games, or even PAL games. Your NES is now universal. We now set our sights on the power supply. Let's start by removing the power regulator 7805 right here. We remove the big metal piece and then we will desolder the regulator using the pump. We won't need it anymore because the power will be handled differently. Let's put our precious chips somewhere more secure. Goodbye CPU, so long PPU. If we still want to use the RCA or RF connectors, we must remove the Q1 transistor. A bit of pumping, and we can remove this part. We then have to make a little bridge so this all works out, using a bit of wire, which I will then solder on. It is now time to make the hole for our HDMI port. I have decided to use a Dremel instead of a blade or a drill. I find it goes better, see? To make room for the new parts, we must remove this little tower here. I'm using my Dremel again to weaken it and take it off with my bare hands. I then clean it up with the Dremel. How wonderful! Once it is nice and smooth, the card fits like a glove. I then make a hole using a 3mm bit in order to screw the card in the console. We then place the ribbons in the CPU and PPU's interposers, and then put both back in their respective places. The PPU goes in the center, while the CPU goes to the side. I have prepared 2 wires for the electricity. We will place the ground in the center, where we previously had the voltage regulator, and we will put our voltage cable right here. Note that the remaining hole is now useless. We can then solder the other end of those 2 wires directly on our new toy, the card that contains the HDMI port. We can insert the ribbons into it. This feels like the end is in sight. Making sure to clip them properly so they don't come out. If they do, well, it will not work. We bring back our beautiful, wonderful chips. We put in the PPU first, then the CPU. We then put back all of our kit in the body. Let's make sure not to break the ribbons, and we will place a screw in the hole we previously made to make sure the card doesn't move around. We reconnect the controller ports as well as the console's buttons. We then make sure nothing is blocked anywhere, that everything is in place, and we can then replace the cartridge tray. Since we're now pros, we can put back the screws quickly. We screw that in, then we place back the big metal part. We screw this back too, and we can now close up our masterpiece. Let's not forget to put in the 6 screws. And here is our work accomplished. Oh, I almost forgot the little sticker. There we go, all cute. Time to test it out! Let's check if the console still works. Takes a little bit of time, but it boots. Connected in RCA, still works. The picture is good on my Commodore 64 monitor. We will now test the HDMI cable in a computer monitor. Let's plug it to see how it reacts. There we go. The left screen seems to have dropped out. It's all good, it works. Some sprites still appear in RCA mode, but it has been established that both cannot function simultaneously. It's now time to compare to the other consoles to see if there is a lag. Let's start with the NES Classic in HDMI. Can we avoid Mr. Dream's powerful blows? I tried to turn once it flashes, but... Okay, concentration. Oh! I got a couple of frames, and I'm doing a lot of anticipation here. I don't know... Oh. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't know anyone who managed to beat Mr. Dreams using the NES Classic. Okay, there was too much input lag with the NES Classic. Let's now try the Retron HD. That color palette is disgusting. Oh, I tried to anticipate. Okay. Concentration again. It's tough. I feel like this is about the same lag as the NES Classic. Hush. It's barely possible. I was trying to get up. Nah. Nope, too much input lag. And now the most important moment. Let's try our mod. Can we beat Mike Tyson? Is there input lag? I had plenty of time. Oh, that was my fault. I moved too quick. Okay, concentration again. Nope. Oh, I got lucky. I was anticipating the shots. Okay. So after the first minute it gets easier. He's not knocking me out on one punch. There we go. This is all the time we have for this episode of Building with Power. It's been a while since we did electronics on this channel, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And please write in the comments what should be my next build or mod. I'm all ears. And I remind you that the resellers are not liable if you break your console attempting to do this mod. Alright, ciao.